It's me again. Well, as you know, when you have one headline that is dominating the news, generally there's other things going on in the world, and they use that as a distraction. So one of the things that's going on, we're going to cover this, is the 3,000 people that was injured and 9 unalive in Lebanon. It was a Hezbollah attack. So let's look at this and see. Um, I'm going to read the article first because I have to wait a few minutes before, 9 people, including, wait a second, child, this. 9 people, including 2 young girls, were unalive and thousands left injured across Lebanon this afternoon after pagers used by Hezbollah fighters to indicate exploded. The wave of sudden and unexpected detonations, which began around 3:45 p.m. local time, 3:45 GMT, and lasted roughly an hour, has so far maimed over 3,000 Hezbollah members and citizens, giving way to widespread panic and chaos. Chaotic scenes across Beirut, southern suburbs, and Bekaa Valley and southern Lebanon. In the neighboring Syria, 14 people were injured by the blast, according to Britain-based War Monitor and Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. Now, this is interesting because, as we know, that you're not going to see this. You're just going to hear about, Diddy. Victims, let's see. Victims were seen sporting significant wounds as they lay on the ground, surrounded by terrifying bystanders, in images shared on social media and broadcast by Lebanon and Israeli networks. Yet more harrowing clips inside Lebanon hospitals show how some unfortunate victims sustained massive head injuries, gaping to their legs and abdomen, or had their hands blown off by the powerful explosion. At least 2 Hezbollah fighters, one of whom is the son of Lebanese parliament member Ali Ara, were confirmed dead by multiple security sources and a family member, according to AFP. An 8-year-old girl from the Bekaa Valley and a 10-year-old daughter of a Hezbollah member were also unalived in the explosions. A spokesperson for the prescribed terror group has since said that Hassan Nasrallah, the group's chief, was not harmed in the blast. Hezbollah says that Israel is fully responsible for the simultaneous explosions, warning the nations. We're just going to go through these pictures because we don't want to be. Okay, so they state that they hold Israel enemy fully responsible for the criminal aggression. The group said in a statement, adding that Israel will certainly receive its just punishment for its sinful aggressions. Israeli military declined to comment on the incidents. The terror group said in a second statement, after examining all the facts, current data, and available information about the sinful attack that took place this afternoon, we hold Israeli enemy fully responsible for the criminal aggression and targeted citizens too. It added it would continue to support Palestine resistance and that the treacherous and criminal enemy will certainly be punished for its aggressive acts. Lebanese government, meanwhile, condemned the pager explosions as criminal Israeli aggression. Prime Minister Najib Mikati said in a cabinet meeting today, following the incidents, that the attack was criminal Israeli aggression, which constitutes a serious violation of Lebanese sovereignty and a crime by all standards. Information sent Minister Ziad Makali said the government has contacted the United Nations to hold them accountable for the continuing crime. UN spokesperson Stephanie Dujarric has since described the developments across Lebanon as extremely concerning, adding, "We deplore the civilian casualties that we have seen. We cannot underscore enough the risk of escalation in Lebanon and in the region." Lebanon's Health Minister Faris Abdid subsequently said the death toll had climbed to 8, while Iranian news agencies confirmed that Iran's ambassador to Lebanon, Mojtaba Amni, was injured in the blast and being treated at the hospital. Okay, so one of the things that they are saying, asking questions, how can explosions be triggered? So we're going to go over that. Explosions can be how could explosion be triggered? The likely source of the explosion was the lithium-ion battery, which powers the pagers used by Hezbollah. While lithium-ion batteries are commonly used in consumer electronics, they can explode violently in some cases. Lithium-ion batteries detonate due to a phenomenon called thermal runaway, a chemical chain reaction which occurs when the battery experiences a rapid temperature change. As the chemical reaction progresses, it can lead to sudden release of energy, which can cause devices to explode with intense force and heat. Thermal runaways are triggered when the battery is overheated, punctured, or overcharged. Pagers often use unencrypted communication channels and outdated software, making them extremely easy targets for an attack. It is conceivable that an adversary of the Hezbollah could have hijacked the pager's broadcast system and implanted a virus that was then activated. So while we were talking about Diddy all day, that is what's going on over there. So there could be a virus that was implanted into the pagers, but as stated before, there are many dead and the numbers are climbing, and there is also 3,000 that have been injured. So there we go with that. So now also in the news, while we're being distracted, is the fact that there was a leak and deep state secret service can't guarantee it can protect and prevent more assassination attempts against former President Donald Trump. This is coming from the Gateway Pundit. The deep state is preparing to the public just to accept that there will be more unaliving attempts against Trump. The Secret Service cannot guarantee that it can prevent more shooting attempts to unalive Trump, according to an intel leak to iNews. Shots were fired at Trump's golf course in West Palm Beach on Sunday afternoon at 1:30 p.m. as the former president was playing a round of golf and with real estate investor Steve Witkoff. Would-be unaliver Ryan Roth set up his sniper's nest in the shrub outside of the perimeter of Trump's golf course in West Palm Beach. Now, also remember that, according to news reports, he was in the bushes for 12 hours. How do you not? But okay. According to law enforcement, Ryan Wesley Roth pushed the muzzle of his rifle through the fence line at Trump's golf course before Secret Service agents fired at him. This is the second unaliving attempt against Trump in 2 months. On July 13th, would-be unaliver Thomas Crooks was able to climb on top of a roof next to Trump's Butler, Pennsylvania rally and put Trump in his scopes. A bullet grazed President Trump's ear during the Pennsylvania rally. One rally goer was fatally shot in the head. 2 other attendees were wounded, one critically. According to the Washington Post earlier this month, Secret Service agents never directed local police to secure the roof that Thomas Crooks used to take the 8 shots at Trump and rally goers. Biden's DHS has repeatedly denied Trump more Secret Service protection, and now the deep state media complex is trying to normalize unaliving attempts against Trump. iNews reported the U.S. Secret Service cannot guarantee it can prevent further shootings such as the 2 apparent unaliving attempts involving Donald Trump. U.S. and British intelligence sources have told iNews. Law enforcement sources on both sides of the Atlantic warned that aggressive social media rhetoric and the ease of buying firearms have created a threat to both presidential campaigns, too large for the U.S. agency to deal with alone. On Sunday, former President Trump faced his second unaliving attempt in 2 months as the would-be shooter positioned himself in the bushes on the perimeter of his Florida golf club. The Secret Service agent monitoring one hole ahead of Trump spotted the barrel of the gun pointing out of the foliage, prompting him to open fire. One suspect was later arrested about 40 miles from the scene, and the official unaliving investigation has been launched by the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigations. And I can say that according to the information that we have received, that Governor DeSantis will also be running an internal independent investigations regarding the attempt made Sunday. So what are your thoughts about Secret Service not saying that they're not able to protect the former president, Donald Trump? And as one thing, why we're bringing other news is because generally when you have something of the magnitude of Diddy, you need to go dig deeper to find out what is being suppressed. So in all the headlines is Diddy, but we have other things that are going on in the world, and the world does not revolve around just that. Now, also, we have Diddy. Since speaking of Diddy, it is his arraignment, and so he has pled not guilty for this. So let's pull this up and see exactly what. Also, I meant to tell everybody that make sure you check the community tabs from time to time on YouTube, because I'll post information there, and you'll be able to see that. Now the update on Diddy. He appears in courts and plead not guilty to racketeering, conspiracy, and trafficking charges. Of course, he tried to, he asked the judge and wanted a plea deal. And so we're waiting to see if the judge grants him the plea deal. This is a long, not a plea deal, but a request for bond, and his own long read. I've been reading all day. You all know, if you watched the first live, I read the entire indictment. Excuse me. And so let's read this right here. He's on racketeering charges on the indictment, which was unsealed today, claiming that he hit, abused, and there was just so many charges, not including the 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant. So he's pled not guilty in the indictment. We're waiting to see. The prosecution says that they do not want him out on bail. We'll pull up the we're gonna pull up the indictment, not the indictment, the letter, and which I'm just going to go over briefly because, like I said, if you go to the community tab, you'll be able to see the letter seeking his release. And this is the letter. Let's read the letter. He goes on to say that they're seeking the release. We're going to go over just a few points. This is the proposed package. They want a $50,000 bond, and that it was co-signed by Sean Combs, his sister, the mother of his oldest daughter, and his 3 adult sons. He wants to secure by using Combs' residence. It's located in Malibu, Florida, and its appraised value is $48 million. The home is unencumbered. In anticipation of this bail, on August 20th, 2024, he paid off the remaining balance of $18 million so that the home would be used to secure the bond and free of the mortgage. He also wants to secured by the equity in Mr. Combs' mother's house located in Miami, Florida. I do believe that that is also Puffy's house. Diddy Combs traveled for him to be restricted to the Southern District of Florida and the Southern District of New York to attend court, meet with his counsel, and attend medical appointments, which will be addressed to the court in a separate sealed submission as the Eastern District of New York or the District of New Jersey, only to extend that his travels to and from New York and to the airport. That Combs' passport has been surrendered to his counsel on April 1st, 2024. His counsel advised the prosecutors of the fact in an email dated the same day. Counsel will provide this passport to pretrial services. Now, this is what I find that's very interesting. And does this have anything to do with the continuing investigation? Also, the passports of the following family members who have already surrendered their passport to counsel after the raise was Janice Combs, Chance Combs, Jesse Combs, Delia Love Combs. Now that's one thing that's interesting to me, and maybe you all can shed some light on it. Was did he? Why did the other family members surrender their passport? I can understand that maybe the sons, but the daughters and the mother wasn't indicted. They weren't a part of the raid or anything like that. So why was their passports surrendered? Now that is a question. One of the things that we went over earlier today was why they arrested him a day earlier. So if they had his passports, you can probably scratch off the fact or the possibility that he was going to flee, because there was not unless he's going to flee somewhere in the United States, but there was, if his passport had been surrendered, then how can he leave the country? We also I wanted to show you again the press conference, and this was the press conference that I played through of the prosecutor through initially. And what said, we're going to play this, and then we're going to see if the judge has made a decision on whether or not they will allow bail for Sean Combs. So we will see. This is the original. We played this earlier. These are the confiscated weapons. Now I'm going to put links of the video in there so you can watch it. This is a press conference.
Morning, everyone. My name is Damian Williams, and I'm the U.S. Attorney here in the Southern District of New York. Today, I'm announcing the unsealing of a 3-count indictment, charging Sean Combs with racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, interstate transportation for prostitution. The indictment alleges that between at least 2008 and the present, Combs abused, threatened, and coerced victims to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. As alleged in the indictment, to carry out the conduct, Sean Combs led and participated in a racketeering conspiracy that used the business empire he controlled to carry out criminal activity, including sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and the obstruction of justice. Let me say a little bit more about the charges. The indictment alleges that Combs abused and exploited women and other people for years, and in a variety of ways. As alleged, Combs used force, threats of force, and coercion to cause victims to engage in extended sexual performances with male commercial sex workers, some of whom he transported or caused to be transported over state lines. Combs allegedly planned and controlled the sex performances, which he called freak-offs, and he often electronically recorded them. The freak-offs sometimes lasted days at a time, involved multiple commercial sex workers, and often involved a variety of narcotics, such as ketamine, ecstasy, and HB, which Combs distributed to the victims to keep them obedient and compliant. As alleged, when Combs didn't get his way, he was violent, and he subjected victims to physical, emotional, and verbal abuse so that they would participate in the freak-offs, and that Combs hit, kicked, threw objects at, and dragged victims, at times by their hair. On one occasion in March of 2016, That conduct was captured on video and later reported in the media. Specifically, Combs kicked, dragged, and threw a vase at a victim in a Los Angeles hotel when the victim was attempting to flee. As alleged, these assaults often resulted in injuries to the victim that took days or weeks to heal. In addition to the violence, the indictment alleges that Combs threatened and coerced victims to get them to participate in the freak-offs. He used the embarrassing and sensitive recordings he made of the freak-offs as collateral against the victims. And the indictment alleges that he maintained control over the victims in several ways, including by giving them drugs, by giving and threatening to take away financial support or housing, by promising them career opportunities, by monitoring their whereabouts, and even by dictating their physical appearance. Because of all of this, the indictment alleges that the victims did not believe they could refuse Combs without risking their security or facing more abuse. The indictment also alleges other acts of violence undertaken by Combs and others, including violence against witnesses to his abuse, kidnapping, and arson. The indictment alleges that on more than one occasion, Combs carried or brandished firearms to intimidate and threaten victims and witnesses. Now, Combs did not do this all on his own. As I mentioned, Combs has been charged with RICO conspiracy. He used his business and employees of that business and other close associates to get his way. Those individuals allegedly included high-ranking supervisors in the business, personal assistants, security staff, and household staff. The indictment alleges that those individuals facilitated the freak-off. They booked the hotel rooms and stocked them with the supplies, including drugs, baby oil, personal lubricant, extra linens, and lighting. When the hotel rooms got damaged, they helped clean it up. They arranged for victims and commercial sex workers to travel for the freak-offs, and they delivered large quantities of cash to pay for the commercial sex workers. The indictment also alleges that they helped Combs cover up his crimes. During the March 2016 incident hotel that I mentioned earlier, a member of the hotel security staff intervened, and Combs attempted to bribe the staff member with a stack of cash to make sure that what happened was kept quiet. And as the indictment alleges, in late 2023, after public allegations were made about Combs' crimes, he and others pressured witnesses and victims to stay silent, including by making phone calls to witnesses and victims and giving them a false narrative of what they had experienced. And as alleged, Combs used others to help conceal his abuse by monitoring and preventing victims from leaving a location in order to hide their injuries, or by locating and contacting a victim who had attempted to flee. As part of this investigation, in March of this year, special agents from HSI executed search warrants at Combs' residences in Miami and Los Angeles. They also executed a warrant for Combs' electronic devices. During those searches, agents seized the crimes charged in this indictment. They seized firearms and ammunition, including 3 defaced AR-15s and a large capacity drum magazine. They also seized evidence of the freak-offs, electronic devices that contained images and videos of the freak-offs with multiple victims. And they seized cases of the kinds of personal lubricant and baby oil that Combs' staff allegedly used to stock hotel rooms for the freak-offs, more than 1,000 bottles altogether. Here are some of the items that we recovered during the searches. As you can see here, this is a drum magazine, large capacity, and it contains, I believe, 59 rounds. I mentioned as well we recovered 3 AR-15s. This is a close-up shot of one of the AR-15s, and you can see right here the serial number has been thoroughly defaced. Another picture of more ammunition and parts to AR-15s right there. Now, I want to be clear about 2 things. First, this office is determined to investigate and prosecute anyone who engages in sex trafficking, no matter how powerful or wealthy or famous you may be. No one should doubt our commitment on that. A year ago, Sean Combs stood in Times and was handed a key to New York City. Today, he's been indicted and will face just Southern District of New York. Second, we are not done. This investigation is ongoing, and I encourage anyone with information about this case to come forward and to do it quickly. Anyone with information can call 1-877-4HSI-TIP. I want to express my deep appreciation for the victims and witnesses who have used their voices and bring this criminal conduct to light. We would not be here without them. I also want to thank the dedicated case agents on the HSI Trafficking in Person Squad in New York. They have been with us since day one and have worked tirelessly on this investigation. They will continue to be invaluable partners to us. I also want to thank the incredible agents and analysts from SCNY who have also provided tremendous assistance on this case. I'm deeply grateful for their continued work. And finally, I want to thank the outstanding career prosecutors from SCNY who are handling this case. Meredith Foster, Emily Johnson, Chrissy Slavic, Madison Smizer, and Mitzi Steiner, and their supervisors, Jamie Backleiter and Jacqueline Kelly. They are members of the Civil Rights Unit in our criminal division. We created the Civil Rights Unit when I became U.S. Attorney. I'm deeply proud of their work on this and so many other cases. I'll now take some questions.
Eric Katursky, ABC.
Damian, thanks. The indictment describes aggressive, open, violent, hedonistic abuse that you say was recurrent and widely known. Why did it take law enforcement so long to intervene? How many women were victimized by Sean Combs, and how many others were involved?
Look, our investigation is ongoing. We are committed to bringing justice to everyone who's been victimized by the defendant. I can't tell you why so long. I think the better focus is on the fact today. And we are committed to making sure that justice is done. Next question.
Julia Ainsley, NBC.
Thank you for doing this. You said we are not done and that Combs did not do this alone. Do you foresee that there could be other charges related to this case?
I'm not taking anything off the table.
Janet Fisher, Newsday.
What's the difference between the sex trafficking and promoting travel for the purpose of prostitution?
Well, there are different crimes with different elements. I don't think we should get into the nitty-gritty of the legal discussion right now, but the sex trafficking, we believe, they're all serious offenses, but the sex trafficking conduct carries some significant penalties, and we are gratified that we were able to bring that charge.
Is one coerce the other?
I'm not going to be able to get into that, but you can look it up, and yes, sex trafficking, especially when it involves coercion or force, is a very serious crime, and it carries significant penalties.
Good afternoon, Darla Miles, ABC7 New York. Thank you for this press conference and for the details. Two questions. In context of this indictment and the information that was presented to the grand jury, are you able to clarify the number of victims? It's mentioned plural in the indictment, but can you specify the number of victims just for this particular indictment? And secondly, can you provide details about the alleged arson?
Unfortunately, I'm not able to provide either. The number of victims, you are correct. We are intentional in saying multiple. The details of the arson incident are limited to what we have in the indictment and also the detention letter that we filed, which contains more details than the indictment does at various points, but we don't have anything more beyond that. Next question.
Lynn Tran, CNN.
Are any of his accomplices or associates under investigation? And additionally, could he face any more charges?
So the investigation is ongoing. That means both as to him and to anyone else who we believe committed the crime with him. Next question.
Juliette Papa.
Hi, good morning from 1010 Wins. Any indication that some of the women or victims here were imprisoned in his residences, and did he have locations where he kept them? And were not allowed to leave? And also, he's indicted here, although there were searches and raids in LA, Miami. Why in New York?
Well, I'm biased. I'm the U.S. Attorney in this District of New York. I think that we have an outstanding track record of bringing some of the most impactful, sprawling, complex, difficult sex trafficking, human trafficking, labor trafficking, you name it. The Southern District of New York can do it, and so we're very proud of that. And so the scope and complexity of this investigation isn't something that we ran from, it's something that we embrace, and we will continue to do that. As to your question about whether he imprisoned anyone, all I can say is that, I mentioned this March 20 incident where something was caught on video, where a victim was attempting to flee, and there was violence that was associated with it. Tell.
Matthew Lee, Inner City Press.
Thanks a lot. Does your office intend to seek remand, or are you reaching a bail package? And if you're willing, how would you contrast this with the R. Kelly case in EDNY in terms of the elements? Thanks.
So we will be seeking detention. We have filed a letter laying out our reasoning for seeking pretrial detention. I'm not going to be able to expand beyond what's in the letter, but it contains all of the reasoning, and it contains the law as well. There is a presumption of detention in a case like this, and we think that's warranted.
John Anise, New York Daily News.
Thank you. I was hoping to get some more detail about the searches of his residence, the guns, the cases of lubricant, and the videos. Where were they found amongst his residence? Were they all scattered around the houses in one place? I kind of wanted to just get a better picture of how that stuff was found.
Look, I think that some of the details we're seeking are in the detention letter. So, for instance, some of the AR-15s, two of the AR-15s were found in his bedroom closet in Miami, broken down into parts, along with magazines with ammunition loaded in them. So, some of that detail is in the detention letter. Beyond that, I'm not going to be able to get into where other items were stored.
Ben Post.
Hey, thanks for doing this. Your office was the office that had been prosecuting Jeffrey Epstein before he died in custody. I have not read your detention memo yet. It's the first thing I'm going to do after this ends. But does the memo address, or is your office concerned with Combs' safety in custody, given what happened with Epstein?
So we are concerned with anyone's safety whenever they are detained prior to trial. It's part of our obligations to keep people safe as well. It's part of the criminal justice system. So, but I do not draw any sort of connection between Jeffrey Epstein's suicide and what may or may not happen to any other defendant while they are detained pre-trial. And of course, the decision whether to detain the defendant will be up to a judge. Our position is that pretrial detention is warranted under the law and based on the facts of this case, and I'll leave it at that.
Are some of the prosecutors on this case some of the same prosecutors that had been handling that, or that worked on the Maxwell case?
So I'm not going to get into the staffing. I will say that this team, this group of AUSAs, this incredible group has been working on this case around the clock, and they've had their hands full. Next question.
Gus Rosendale, NBC News.
Good morning, sir. Combs said that his client has been cooperative with investigators. He said that this morning. I was wondering if you would have a reaction to that.
Let me just say this. I think that generally and with increasing frequency, the word cooperative or cooperating has taken on tremendous elasticity and no longer really any relation to what means when we use it in a very specific context. So lawful process and the like does not qualify as cooperation when we use that term here.
Mike Sisak, AP.
Thanks. To that end, was there any discussion of Mr. Combs surrendering? I understand he was taken into custody at a hotel in Manhattan tonight, and maybe that wasn't the plan. Can you elaborate on how that came about and why that was?
I'm not going to be able to get into any sort of operational details, how he was taken into custody and when. He is in custody right now. He will be appearing in court later today.
Was there any discussion of him surrendering, given, they claim he's cooperating?
I'm not going to be able to get into law enforcement tactics or operations. Well, I can't get into the charging decision. It is very meaningful to us that weapons were possessed, as we allege in the indictment. Part of the reason why this conduct was so pervasive and harmful was because victims and others didn't necessarily feel comfortable denying him his wishes, as we allege, because of the presence of firearms. There.
Thanks. Last question, Jacob Shamison.
Jacob Shamsian, Business Insider. Thank you. Given he's the sole defendant in this case and that you allege he's part of a conspiracy of companies, do you anticipate a superseding indictment that will bring allegations against other members of his companies or other co-conspirators as well?
I can't take anything off the table. Anything is possible. Our investigation is very active and ongoing. And I think a lot of you who cover this office know that when we say such things, that developments are certainly foreseeable, but I cannot predict them sitting here today. All right, everyone.
Thank you. What part of this business empire is exposed to forfeiture?
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, everybody. Now, after that transpired, as I stated in the chat, if you want to read the letter from Diddy's attorney to the judge requesting a $50 million secured bond, I'm not going to read it. It's 10 pages. I've been reading all day to you all, but it's on the community tab. Make sure you go over there. But what I am going to do some more reading is because he was Diddy was arraigned and he was pleaded not guilty to all 3 charges. Now, one thing about federal court, there are no cameras allowed in the courtroom, so it would not be streamed live. We have, there is a news organization, Inner City Press, that was inside the courtroom as the proceedings are going on regarding the request for bail. So I'm going to read to you all. They were live tweeting. So hour ago, it says Sean Combs is now sitting at the defense table in a black shirt with 2 U.S. Marshals standing behind him. His lawyer is Mark Agafrino. Prosecutor's table is full. Then it goes, all rise. Judge Robin Tanowski presiding. Assistant U.S. Attorney Emily Johnson enters other AUSA. Alfino Filio. We represent Sean Love Combs here beside me, and the judge says, Mr. Combs, you have been charged with certain crimes in the indictment. Here are the crimes. The judge says to him, you have the right to be represented by a lawyer for this proceeding and any questioning by authorities. The indictment has 3 counts: racketeering, conspiracy, including trafficking, forced labor, bribery, arson, and obstruction of justice. The judge continues, victim 1 was forced to engage in acts. You are charged with knowingly transporting an individual to engage in prostitution. Counsel, have you received the copy? Agnafilio says yes. The judge said, Mr. Combs, how do you plead? Combs said not guilty. Magistrate Judge Tarnowski has Judge Carter set a conference date. AUSA Johnson, yes, Tuesday, September 20th at 10 a.m., the first day of the UN General Assembly. The judge says, I include the Speedy Trial Act time. Until then, we will have a detention hearing. Attorney for the USA, Johnson, says these crimes carry a maximum sentence of life in prison or death. There is a risk of flight and that the person will obstruct justice or attempt to intimidate witnesses. This is a presumption case based on trafficking. The judge says, Mr. Combs, the government bears the burden of establishing that you are in danger to the community and government. USAD, which is the prosecutor, the Fed, said the defendant, Sean Combs, used victims for decades. He used vast amount of resources from his company to commit and cover up crimes. The Attorney General continued. Trial services agreed that he should be detained after interviewing him. Now he's facing significant charges with mandatory prison time. We request an order of detention. We submit a detention letter this morning here. And so here is the detention letter that they submitted. The attorney for the feds continued. He set up freak-offs, forcing sex and masturbation during it. He also filmed some of them. He shocked the room with narcotics. He stocked the room with narcotics so that female victims would continue for multiple days. The defendant committed other physical assaults, kidnapping, and arsons. He surrounded himself with and used firearms, including 3 defaced AR-15s we seized, 1 and 2 in Miami in his bedroom closet. The indictment charges bribery, obstruction of justice. Let me give an example. On 5th, 2015, at the Intercontinental Hotel in LA, disclosed in May of this year, this indictment is critical. It is recorded example of his use of force. The victim sought to leave the freak off and she was assaulted, and he assaulted her. When the hotel security was helping the victim to leave the hotel, the defendant attempted to bribe the officer with a handful of cash. The guard refused to be bought. The defendant tried to get the video. The video disappeared from the hotel's server. This is not a coincidence. The cover-up is continued for another 7 years. There was a civil lawsuit in mid-November 2023 that detained his assault at the Intercontinental. The defendant denied it, called it lies. We fast forward to the video being publicized. Then the defendant admitted he was involved in this assault. It is clear you cannot believe when he denies things. Make no mistake, March 5th is just one example. There are numerous assaults. Shocking. This freak-off activity is the core of this case. The risk of danger in this case is acute. There has been spontaneous violence, so it is difficult to craft any conditions for release. It's a long-standing pattern of abuse, entirely undeterred. Witnesses have been interviewed, have universally expressed fear. The defendant has contacted witnesses who received grand jury subpoenas. He contacted at least one victim. His instant contact with witnesses on September 10th, a week ago, Don Richards sued. Okay, what's it? Don Richards sued. Before the September 14th statement by Ms. Harper, the defendant called her 54 times in one day. Oh, wow. Wow, wow. Some of the way in which the defendant contacts witnesses and victims are meant to evade. He uses intermediaries. The defendant cannot overcome the presumption. On the obstruction, court has revoked bail in this circuit. Lebanon, feeding the false narrative SBF book will aim to do more. The USA Attorney for the USA continued. R. Kelly was detained. Jeffrey Epstein was detained on conduct going back much further back in time. Keith Raniere detained on all three grounds, even though the violence was committed by others. His incentive to flee changed when he was arrested last night. The defendant is a wealthy man. It allows him to flee quickly and without detection. His counsel have taken steps to minimize flight risk to set up for the argument made today, but then his incentives were entirely different. He flew to New York 2 weeks ago. He had to appear to be he had what appeared to be narcotics found in his hotel last night, pink powder that have been tested positive for ecstasy and other drugs. This is Heartland Detention Center. His package is woefully inadequate. It only focuses on flight risk. The government has spoken to over 50 witnesses. We have sworn out warrants for cloud accounts. The search have yielded 90 cell phone calls and 30 other devices, including surveillance systems. The freak-offs are collaborated. 300 grand jury subpoenas. The defendant poses a danger to these proceedings through obstruction. He should be detained pending trial. The judge, and now she asked Mr. Agnafilo, who is the attorney, starts and says, I am going to address the government's letter, but first, on September 5th, Mr. Combs flew to New York. He could tell an indictment was coming. He could tell an indictment was coming in the fall from our meetings with the prosecutor's chief. My client flew to New York. I told him that the prosecutors, I'd like for him to have the opportunity to turn himself in. We got involved in this case in March 2024. We've been doing our own investigation. On March 13th, I reached out to my colleagues at the U.S. Attorney Office and asked to meet. On November 2023, lawsuit seems connected. It got attention. They read the papers. After the raid, we took Mr. Combs' passport on April 1st. After that, anytime he traveled domestically, we told the prosecutors a trip to graduations in California, another one to whitewater rafting. We wanted to build trust to surrender. The March 25th raids were frightening, laser pointed at his children. They were marched out in front of the house while news reporters and helicopters handcuffed for 2 hours, completely innocent. We did not want that to happen again. So that is this is a transcript of what. So we're going to wait. That. So as of now, we don't have any information on whether he has been released or not. I don't know. You all tell me whether or not you think Diddy will be released on bail. And the prosecutors, the feds are fighting real hard so that he will not receive. I'm looking at my phone because of the fact that, I keep getting information in. I don't want to have to keep doing lives. So we're going to, he went on in and in. Let's see if we got. definitely not going to. So anyway, we'll keep you posted. There's going to be on the community tab. Um, Make sure you go to the community tab, as I'll keep things posted there. Um, the arguments from the court, whether or not they have decided on whether they're going to release him on bond, on the $50 million bond. They're still arguing in court. Let's see if there's any updates. It is just a lot. And so also, okay, wait a second. There's more. Okay, so I stopped off at um that, so I'm going to keep up with my thing. I'm going to continue to read this for you. So the Diddy's attorney continued. Excuse me. Last thing, his passports. Okay, he took his passports. We're trying to and he goes on to say, why are we trying to sell the plane? It's not our first rodeo. The plane, someone else is using it from LA to Teterboro tonight. Just my luck, I wouldn't have the temerity to come here and ask for the freedom if I didn't have the passports. There's one victim in the court. Two, the trafficking charge. Mr. Combs wrote a very large check to someone. He was in a relationship for 10 years. People got in line for their checks. I have no idea. 12 victims. I don't know. I'm happy there's only one. Why is the attorney, he's happy there's only one victim? There should be no victims. But anyway, this is still coming from the inner city press. This case, we think, is intimately manageable. Pretrial services said he has a criminal record, but he was acquitted. He is ready to do that again. What is Mr. Combs doing in New York? He's here for the treatment and therapy. Combs continued. Mr. Combs, not perfect person. These toxic relationships are mutual. Now he is trying to be a better person for the rest of his days. If there's one thing we have seen should stand out, is that people that he's trying to get the help he needed. Somehow this hotel footage found its way out. I wonder how that happened. We didn't have it. Government had it. It got out. On the day Donald Trump didn't have any court proceedings, Mr. Combs saw it and issued an apology. He wanted to do it. Two people were in the whole hotel room. An issue that Mr. Combs had more than one girlfriend. Okay. Victim one is looking through his phone and saw that, then hit him in the head with the cell phone and took his clothing. So he came out in a towel. These two people were in love. Now this attorney, oh my gosh, I cannot take this. This attorney is trying to make an excuse for what we saw on the video of Diddy running her down while she was trying and beating her. kicking her. But this is what the attorney said. These two people were in love. Victim one ended up marrying their trainer that Mr. Combs got for her. They had been cheating on each other for years, but now she had 2 kids with the trainer. Years later, she realized she had a good thing with Mr. Combs. Oh no! Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! No, this attorney didn't. Whew. She has her lawyer call his lawyer and say she was writing a book, but if you want to buy the rights, you have the right for $30 million. We have a recorded conversation. It did not go well for her and the lawyer. November 2023, she sues. Now this is Diddy's attorney in the court pleading for the bail. And he's saying that, that Cassian was in love with Diddy and that she knew that she realized she had a good thing with Diddy, even though they had been separated. She was now divorced from her lawyers. He goes on to say, when he contacts witnesses, it's not to stop a criminal investigation. It is not to be seen that one. Why is it depicted as a one-sided thing? There's 30 million reasons, $1 a piece. She said, I'm going to write a book. You can buy the rights. Don Rich's lawsuit and Miss Harper came to the same band. The lawsuit says he did a couple of inappropriate things. Miss Harper says that was not my experience. That is not intimidation. It's divergent recollections. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not even sure Don Richards is a witness in this case. My client hasn't done a darn thing. We have interviewed at least 6 of these males. We asked, did it seem non-consensual? Anyone too drunk or too high? They all said no. Is it sex trafficking if everyone wants to be there? No. We don't want the federal government in our bedroom. The kidnapping. We spoke to the victim. She didn't use the word to us. One day, it may be heard. Mr. Combs employs a security company. Combs' attorney continued. Combs has nothing to do with how guns are kept in his house. He needs security in the sections of LA and Miami he lives in. Come on, those are multi-billion-dollar homes. We all see those homes. He needs security. Okay. Did they do it wrong? Not for us to say. Not his guns. R. Kelly, that involved children. They cannot consent. Jeffrey Epstein, children. Keith Raniere, children. We have a substantial bail package. Some family members are here. They love him. A $50 million bond secured by a $48 million piece of property. On August 20th, he paid off the $18 million balance. One day, we're in full trial. We'll have a fair trial. One day we'll have a fair trial. We have substantial defenses to each of these charges. Mr. Combs is hanging his head up. He becomes a punching bag. He's built a business from scratch. His father was killed when he was 2 years old. He earned it all. Mr. Combs has earned this court's trust. I have nothing else to say. The judge asked Mrs. the attorney for the U.S. if she had a rebuttal. And the defense counsel has his critique of law enforcement, but he has not rebutted the presumption that the defendant should be detained. The attorney for The USA says, 3 days after November 23rd lawsuit, the defendant is recorded saying he doesn't want to talk on the phone. It might be tape. He uses armed security with defense AR-15 stored in defendant's personal closet. Absurd. For the record, we are proceeding on the theory of the lack of consent, that she was coerced to participate in these acts. The judge says, he wouldn't be a danger, would he, if he only engaged in these behaviors with consenting adults. The attorney for the federal government says, we have the hallway video. Diddy's attorney said, this is a slippery slope. The government is going to say she was coerced. She had to say that to get her $30 million. To go for $30 million. We have a serious bail package. I hope Your Honor can see that Combs have done things to show that he's trustworthy. Let's see if he's now these are, like I said, this is live action in the courtroom, because I have to read this because you cannot there's no cameras in federal courtrooms. So we would not be able to see the proceedings. This is being texted out. Okay, so he goes on to say, Diddy's attorney goes on to say, I am asking you to trust me. I have an eye on him. We speak 5 times a day. I want to thank you, Your Honor. The judge says, thank you. I'm going to take a short recess and invite pretrial services to join me in the robing room. The judge leaves the courtroom. With the judge out of the courtroom, with pretrial services, Combs is sitting at the defense table. His attorney is gesturing in front of him. The judge is back. In this case, oh, sorry, counsel's not here. My apologies. He filed back in to the front of the table. The judge asks Diddy's attorney, do we need to wait for your partner? And his attorney says, I appreciate it. So we're waiting on his attorney's, his partner. That was a minute ago, 2 minutes ago. So hopefully this man, okay. Ooh. So we got to wait for the update. Wait for the update. Give us a second. So they're waiting for Diddy's attorney, one of the attorneys, to get back in the room before the judge makes a decision here. Let's see here. Ooh. So y'all be patient with me. This is a whole lot of stuff. I don't know where his other partner is. I wish the judge would go on so they can type, so they can say out this information on what's going on here. He appreciate it. Let me pull up my other phone, because this one is faster. Mm. Excuse me. Okay. In the case, I find the presumption has not been rebutted. The judge has ruled that Diddy will stay in the custody and will not be released. So, anyway, everybody, Diddy is to remain in custody. Thank you all for staying with me during this live. If you have any questions, keep going to the community tab. Make sure you share, like, subscribe, share, all those good things, comment, and we'll keep you posted on what's going on. We appreciate you. Diddy is being denied bail from the court. Let me see if I pull this up for you to see. And he has been denied bail and will be detained. And the judge has just ruled in SD, New York, Inner City Press live tweet below. In the case, the judge states, in this case, I find the presumption has not been rebutted, so Sean Combs will be detained. And we want to give a shout out. I want to put it up to who was live tweeting. I want to, because I know how hard it is, and people will use your information and not share who is responsible for it. But we want to give a shout out to Inner City Press in New York, who was live tweeting and had that information there. So make sure you all follow them. But it has been denied. So again, we covered the topics of the 9 people dead and 3,000 injured after Hezbollah new pages simultaneously exploded across Lebanon, sparking mass panic with sources that's blaming Israel. We also covered the fact that a leak from a deep state leak that Secret Service, the deep state leak to iNews that Secret Service said that they cannot guarantee it can prevent more unaliving attempts against Trump. And we also covered Diddy and also I forgot. So we also going to talk about, before I go, who could also possibly be, again, thanks to Inner City Press, who could also possibly be named in some of Diddy's turmoil that's going on. Because as you know, the lead attorney for the prosecution stated in the interview that we showed, the press conference, that it is an active investigation. And so there's Usher, there's Jay-Z, there's T.D. Jakes. Now, as far as this channel is concerned, I know a lot of people will be covering the Diddy and other possible people. Then there's a long list, not just the ones I've listed. But I will be going really hard on doing the deep dive because this is Christian. Whether T.D. Jakes is being named again, everybody. Let me put this in the chat so you all can see. I'm not going to put it in the chat. I'm going to put it on the screen. If you have tips or anything, you can email me. You have tips, but we will be covering very closely. This is for the tips, and if what you would like to see us cover. So if you want to send that email to me, you can send it right here. If you have tips on articles or different information that not just this story, but other stories that you want us to cover. But anyway, the investigation is still active. There's so many other theories. I will do a live on another network because this one is, there's only so much you can say. And again, check the community tab, and I will let you all know. I might do a short and say, come over here to check out this particular video or whatever. But if you have tips, you want to follow up on a story like this, hit me up at this email address right here. This email address, that's what that is for. But that's all that's for. But anyway, okay, so I think that now that Diddy, this is just my personal opinion, I could be 100% wrong, but I believe that since Diddy has been arraigned, as far as Jadone is concerned, I think that Lecrae and TD Jakes and several other people need to be cautious. They might have already been contacted and interviewed by the police, well, the feds. We will see. I will keep my ear to the ground, and I will bring you all the information. This is not a gospel gossip thing. This is covering the news. I also want to, which I also had earlier, and I wanted to put up on the screen. If you have been a victim of domestic violence, this is the hotline number. Men and women are victims. And one reason why we're covering this Diddy thing so strongly is to encourage those that have been victims. And there are a lot of them in the church, whether it happened when you were grown or whether it happened when you were a child. And, one of my other stories, the other day, I did an old story back several months ago, and someone commented on the story, and they contacted me to let me know that they had almost been a victim of a child predator. And so sometimes people might not see why we do this, but we do this for the protection of the body of Christ and for the protection of people as a whole. But anyway, thank you all so much for tuning in with Save News TV. Subscribe, share, like, comment, and I appreciate you all so much. You all have a wonderful, fabulous day. And if something I can't wait for breaks, I will have to go live. But as now, this will be the last live for today. It might not be, but check the community tab. Make sure you follow, like, subscribe. So turn on your notifications so you can get this information. All right. Thank you. Bye.